Hi everyone, welcome back to the garden. I bet you get fed up with me starting these videos saying the sky's blue, the birds are singing, but today they genuinely have all day long. I don't know if you can hear that blackbird in the tree behind me, but it's been singing its heart out non-stop all day. That, combined with the feeling of actual warm sun, has made it an absolute pleasure to be outside. Now, I should say I did film this video on Saturday, so by the time you're watching this, I think normal service has been resumed, but hopefully we'll get some more sun like this very, very soon. But today, I want to talk about the first of my spring projects. One area that I'm wanting to improve in the garden, and it's an area that's currently basically just a slab of concrete. I want to build a deck and surround it with some exotic Mediterranean style planting. So I thought before I actually do anything, I'll give you a bit of an overview of the project so you can see what the plans are and see if I have to actually adapt it along the way. But anyway, I suppose if this was a proper TV show, I'd have 3D graphics, probably some virtual reality glasses. I've got none of that. I'm sure I could whizzle something up on the computer, but I don't really have the time to be doing that. So you just have to put up with some sunglasses and a bit of imagination. So let's get going. Let's give this area more context then by heading through the tree fern avenue. And as we pass through, you'll see several potted plants, including this Mahonia soft caress. Further through, we've got the cordyline Torbay dazzler. They're going to be planted out later in this spring. Got Shooter Panax there, looks fantastic. And over on this side, in the middle of all the other weeds, we've got some amaranthus that are self-sown. It flowered really well for me last summer. And so this is the result. I might spread some of those further around the garden so get even more colour this summer. But as things open up, I should say I haven't done any sort of tidying for this video. This is the jungle clearing. And at the minute things do look a little bit sparse, but that's mainly because of how big these gunnera get. The transformation is well underway and those green leaves are already reaching for the sky. You can hear all the birds up in the tree there. But the actual area that I'm looking to talk about today is this area here, this concrete slab. And the area of concrete was actually already here when we moved in, but what's changed about it? Well, let me explain the story. About a month before I started uploading properly to this YouTube channel then, December 2020, I actually won a greenhouse. I was really lucky. And it was quite a modern looking greenhouse, we'll say a medium sized one. And it would have fitted that concrete base about perfectly. That base is about 2.1 metres across and then 2.6 metres from front to back. So it would have fitted nicely on there. But unfortunately, not many people enter the competition, which is probably why I won, because I'm never usually that lucky. And also the company, they decided, or they realised they're going to lose a lot of money over it. So they couldn't actually give that full price away. I know the past couple of years have been very tricky for lots of companies, so we agreed to wait for a while and see things improved. But long story short, they've agreed now to supply next month, hopefully, a smaller greenhouse. So I think it's around 6 or 8 by 2. It's more of a display case than a greenhouse. But I've realised over the past year of actually being in the garden and living here, that if I did actually have a big greenhouse in that spot, it might take away from my enjoyment of the garden. This is probably just me trying to see the sort of positive in the situation. But I think after going through that tree fern avenue, where it's quite claustrophobic, the plants lean in, having a space where the garden actually opens up and you can enjoy the area, that's something that you really need to sort of treasure. So if I have my small greenhouse at the back, I've now got plenty of room for seating in front of it. And last summer, we came out here for a couple of breakfasts. It was a really nice place to be. So that's exactly what I'm going to do this year. I'm going to have the small greenhouse at the back when I get it, and then I'm going to have a bigger area in front where we can enjoy it and have a deck. So let me tell you a bit more about those plans now. So looking at the area then, the greenhouse is roughly going to be about the same size or the same width as that fence panel and the post either side of it, and it's going to be about 2 foot deep. So that'll probably take it out to maybe around there if it's on the edge. So what I've now got then is quite an expanse of actual patio area. And the plan is, I've actually got some old sleepers. I'm going to use those to create a sort of board around here or a platform. And then last week I had an exciting delivery of some new green oak sleepers. Now, don't worry, I haven't come into someone's inheritance or won the lottery. Those sleepers were less than £10 more than the treated pine equivalent. So for me, I thought it was an absolute no-brainer because green oak, it doesn't need treating, it ages very naturally, and they'll last outside, even here in the UK, for years and years. So that's going to look really fantastic. They start off like an orangey sort of yellow colour, they'll fade, probably get a little bit darker, and then over time, they'll age to a beautiful silver grey. So I'm really excited to see what that looks like. So the plan is greenhouse in the middle, these lengths of sleepers, which are basically going to be sort of like chunky decking really, come out towards me. And they'll probably overhang the edge, cantilevered by about a foot or so, something like that. So it's going to be a really nice place just to sit. And in summer, looking up this way, you'll get the light just coming through those trees there. And then there's summer evenings, as you can probably see there down where the tripod is, the sunlight just streams through the garden. So it's a beautiful place to be. And I think in a lot of respects, if I had just gone for the big greenhouse here, I would have missed out on that. It would have been the section of the garden that you just passed through on the way to the far end. So rather than being a journey, this place is now a destination. And I'm excited to actually develop the planting and build on that. Now, these two holes here that you see, this morning, they were actually Burinda Papyrifera blue bamboos. I planted them when we first moved in. And at the time, it definitely seemed like the right spot. But since then, the neighbour on that side to the left has actually chopped down his tall hedge, really reduced the height of it. So I don't have that barrier against the cold winds. And as a result, the Burindas actually looked a bit tatty even after this winter. So what I've actually done now is move them further down the garden, up that in there, into a shadier spot. They'll be a lot happier down there. Looking at the area in more detail then, the first thing you'll notice is behind it, we've got the brick shed. And as I face this way, I'm facing east. North is that way. One thing that I should say about these fence panels, I've had a few people ask about them, say that I should paint them black. And believe me, it is in my plans to have all the fence panels black, but A, it's a lot of work, and B, the fence panels on this side belong to the neighbour. So I think it's actually replacing these ones at some point soon, so it would seem a really bit of a shame to actually paint them all, just to then have them taken away. But anyway, that will be done at some point. I'm a big fan of black fence panels, and I think they really make the plants pop. But anyway, what I was getting at, this area, with the fence panel to the north, this brick shed to the east, it's very sheltered. And I think that's one reason why my Phoenix canariensis, the Canary Island date palm, has done so well. Now, admittedly, this winter has been very mild for the majority, but it's amazing just to see how green and vibrant this palm looks. It's probably the greenest, healthiest looking palm in the garden, which is fantastic considering it's one of the least hardy palms that I grow. And here in North Lincolnshire, it's definitely not a bulletproof hardy choice. But what I have done, I've chosen the most sheltered spot in the garden for it. This is a very treasured spot. Like I said, we've got no wind coming through. That brick shed will absorb a lot of the daytime heat and pass out at night. So even in winter, the radiated heat that that brick wall absorbs would pass back out. It might just mean a degree or so of difference to the palm, but that degree can be all the difference. So as we look at it, you'll see it's quite a large plant. Now, one thing with these phoenixes, they grow outwards quite a lot before they grow upwards. So this is a palm that needs a lot of room. And admittedly, it's reasonably close to the wall behind it. But still, I think there's enough room. You just need to bear in mind with these that that trunk can get to over 1 metre wide and it's really spiky. If you look at the base of the leaves, those spines have just, well, I'll touch one there, they're absolutely ferocious. They're really stiff, basically like needles. You don't want to be anywhere near to it. So if you're growing a phoenix in your garden, don't plant it right next to your house. Don't plant it right next to a path. And don't plant it anywhere where you're going to just brush past it, because you'll only do that once and you'll definitely remember it. But anyway, that palm there is pretty much the centerpiece of this section. And the Burindas this morning, I looked at them and thought, yes, they're evergreen, but to me, now they're in the wrong spot. With a bigger greenhouse that would have sort of filled up this whole concrete area, they'd have looked great. They'd have been at the back there, a nice jungly backdrop. But since the actual plans changed and we're actually looking to enjoy this area a lot more, I want some evergreen planting here. I want some structural planting, something really green and vibrant to add to the area, add to that exotic sort of Mediterranean feel. As you can see, I've got an Aloe stritula. They've changed the name recently. And there, a Euphorbia, those fantastic spring flowers. So really, I want something punchy, vibrant and green here to help add to that Mediterranean look. And that can only mean one thing, it's palms. Palm one then is the last Trachycarpus fortunei I have potted, the last large one anyway. This is a plant that I was saving for some spot in the garden. I didn't know exactly where, but it's a beauty. Now this one is quite unusual looking, and that it's got this sort of build-up of roots around the base of the trunk. I guess you probably could remove them, but I've never really done it, and to me, there's no real need for it. It's going to go at the back of the border anyway. And as you can see above it, I've actually started stripping the trunk. Now, I've had quite a few people message me asking for a video on how to strip a Trachycarpus trunk. And what that means, essentially, if you haven't heard of it before, most Trachycarpus look like this one over here. With quite a hairy trunk, that's what they develop. You've got all the old leaf bases, and they'll actually stay in the trunk like that for many, many years, probably even 50 plus years. But what you can do is remove them. I'll just run up the garden quickly to show you an example of a strip trunk one. Mr. T-Rex enjoying the sun. I will do a full garden tour soon if enough people want to see it. So this is a strip trunk one here. And as you can see, well, actually I did this one about 4 years ago, but it's still got a beautiful sort of almost orangey yellow colour to it. They will fade to grey in time, but I don't think it's something I'd do to every Trachycarpus, and I completely understand if it doesn't match your taste. But I think for the odd one, for a slim trunk like this one, it really adds a proper sort of desert island palm vibe. And obviously here in the UK, we can't grow an unlimited variety of cold hardy palms. So something like this that you do to the odd Trachycarpus, to me, it really adds variety. And here in this sort of jungle, sort of desert area, more desert than jungle to be fair, I think it really has the right vibe. So this is exactly what I'm going to do to the other palm. So the plan is then to keep stripping the trunk of this. I will do a video about it because I've had quite a few people message me asking how to do it. And to be honest with you, it's quite straightforward, but does take a lot of time, and you need to be very careful with the Stanley knife. So that video will be coming up soon. And that palm will be planted at the back of this section here there. So it'll basically go plonk down there. Behind it, I've got my Parthenocissus henriana. I just like saying that now, my Chinese Virginia creeper. That is deciduous, but the look of those green leaves on this old wall, to me, that's gonna look amazing. And that palm, the Trachycarpus, the reason why I've chosen to actually plant a mature one is so that it overhangs this phoenix. Because this phoenix will get wide, it's gonna throw out a lot more of these leaves every year. It'll be hard for a small palm to actually battle through it. Whereas this tall one, it's been in that pot for a good few years now. So as soon as I plant it, it'll maybe take this year to settle in, but then going forwards, it's gonna rock it up. And to me, having a taller plant on the left-hand side here, and then the planting where it just staggers down to the phoenix, and then down further again to those tree ferns, it'll look really balanced, really natural. And what it also does, it opens up a planting spot in front of it. And that's where a bit of a decision comes in. Because I want to continue the Mediterranean planting. I like my euphorbia there, Wolfenii. I'm so excited to see that flower, hopefully next spring. It really is one of the brightest, boldest flowers you can get. And over there, we've got Aloe stridula, which is such a weird looking exotic, but it's amazing that an aloe can actually survive here, especially one as incredible as that can take -10, maybe even lower than that. Really is incredible. So I want to have some more Mediterranean style planting, but I also want to have something with real impact that deserves a spot, because this is one of the most sheltered spots in the garden, trapped between a greenhouse and that brick wall. If I'm going to get away with growing a palm here, it needs to be a special one. Something like this Butia odorata with its beautiful blue silvery leaves. It's a fantastic looking palm. And this one I actually got as a very small plant. I think it was 3 or 5 litre pot. I've grown it on, potted it up since. So it must have a really good root system now. It's in a 70 litre, absolutely ready to grow as soon as it gets in the ground. Butias are a palm that I used to think were really hardy, and the figures will certainly suggest it, but I think they need the right spot to be hardy. Here, where I had them planted out further down the garden, they didn't do especially well. They showed a lot of leaf markings, and I think that's because under the trees it was just too damp and too wet for them. Whereas this spot here, I could raise it up a little bit, keep that sort of bank going across, and have really good drainage. So I think sandwiched between the greenhouse, or say nestled between the greenhouse and that wall, this plant should have a really great chance of actually growing well. So that's probably going to go in the front there. And then in front of it, I might go for something like a Mediterranean dwarf fan palm. I've got a few of those ready to actually plant out in the garden in spring. I need to make my mind up really. And I think sometimes, no matter how good your plans are, you really need to get some of the plants in position and then sort of see how it feels. But like all my planting, I'm going to try and imagine just how the plants will look as they actually size up and get mature. If I'm lucky enough for this plant to actually reach full size, it really will be an impressive thing here. So I don't think it's too close to the phoenix. Even if that phoenix trunk got to 1 metre across, there's still enough room for this Butia. And like I probably said, I'm going for the packed palm look, that sort of wall of leaves. I think it really will make this a special place to sit, surrounded by this sort of Mediterranean exotic foliage. And on this side, you'll have the more tropical big leaf planting. There is an area though that I still need to make up my mind about, and it's this border here, if you can even call this a border. If I put my dirty garden trainer in, you'll see it's just over 1 foot wide. Gets a little bit wider at that end. So it's quite tight, and I've done a few different videos saying that for a proper jungle exotic look, you need the widest borders possible. So I'm definitely not got that here. I did actually consider chopping some of this concrete back. But in reality, I do actually want the greenhouse set quite far back, so you've got more space in front of it to enjoy. So what I'm thinking is, I might actually plant it up. And when I actually did a garden tour video early summer last year, one of the questions that I put in it was, what do you people think I should plant here? And I think the leading sort of answer or choice was climbers. The plan was to basically have a few sort of wires in that wall there and run them across and have a post sort of somewhere there. So I could basically screen the wall with some exotic colour, even sort of Clematis amandii, some evergreen climbers. But to me, I've sort of thought about it since. Now we're having the small greenhouse and the plant is going to be more prominent. I don't really want to screen the fence. I want to have some planting to enjoy. So yes, I can still have some climbers sort of along the top of that trellis, but equally, I want to have some really impressive exotic planting here. So if I'm ruling the climber idea out, my first thought was to have a few cordylines, maybe even 5, really go for it. I think just the plain green ones, the tough ones, not ones like this one here, which if a plant looks like this after a mild winter, I don't exactly know what variety it was, but one of the more decorative ones, I won't be growing that plant again. I'll go for 3 or 5 of the standard green cordyline australis. I just think the idea of those reaching up and over the greenhouse with their amazing great big sort of palm-like fronds up in the air, I think that'll look incredible as they're sized up. They look great in the sun, they'd coat well here without, you know, huge amounts of water or soil to play with. So basically, cordylines thrive on neglect. They do great there. And also the height they would give, I think it would really sort of tie in with the Trachycarpus line there. Give a little bit of formality to this side of the garden. And then I could plant lower plants between them. And even as they size up, hang lights between them that will really give the garden a sort of interesting twilight vibe. We'll see anyway. When I say twilight, I obviously mean the time of day, nothing to do with wolves. But that's the first plan, the cordline plan. The second plan was to really go for it this year with salvias. Have some taller salvias I'm going to show you in a video soon, probably 3 of those along this section, and then in between them have some more salvia amistad, which would be, you know, great, you know, fantastic colours, great for the bees and everything. But then I thought in winter it's going to look a little bit plain. I don't really want to look at this fence all day long. I want to at least have something in front of it. So I think most likely plan 3, the one that I'm going to go for, is have a mixture of different exotics, but ones that can cope with this sort of narrow section of soil. I've got a Pseudopanax ready to go. I have got a couple of cordylines. I've got a Formium. I've got some other interesting plants, including a couple of Mediterranean dwarf fan palms. Those could go great here. So to me, I think really it's about interesting structural plants. Evergreen plants, ones that are actually going to look great all year, even in winter. When I come outside, I'll see them through the back of the greenhouse. So I think that's probably the angle that I'm going to go with. As much colour, as much structure as I can pack in. It'll really help continue on for the sort of exotic Mediterranean style theme from that side. So that's my plans for this part of the garden. A beautiful little greenhouse on a lovely area to sit, surrounded by that lush, exotic Mediterranean style planting. I'm really excited to see it develop, and I hope you'll join the journey with me. I'm assuming that by now, people are watching this video, you're probably subscribers or you've followed my journey so far. I honestly appreciate every single one of you. And to me, it really helps when it comes to planning projects like this, because yes, it takes time to film these videos, and I could have probably finished it by now if I wasn't doing it, but it really makes me actually think about what I'm doing, the whys behind things, why I'm choosing the plants that I'm putting there, not just rushing into things. And that's a good thing for me, and hopefully you've got something out of it too. So I hope you'll join me on the videos I'm doing about this project, stripping that Trachycarpus trunk, planting that exotic Mediterranean style planting, and then also putting the oak sleeper decking down. I wouldn't claim to be an expert at that side of things, but I'm looking forward to giving it a go anyway. So yes, there's been a couple of external factors, like my neighbour chopping his hedge down, which isn't ideal, and then also the greenhouse being smaller. Again, you know, that's not ideal. But in respects, I suppose it's changed this situation to a positive, because now I've got a new area of the garden that I'm not just going to look at and walk past or use to store plants. It's an area that we're really going to enjoy, and that's probably the most important thing of all. So thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya!